Marvel Rivals director explains why Concord failed. So I seen the headline for this, and it was one of those things I wanted to get into just because of the fact that, I think I had done like one or two videos on Concord. So being able to actually discuss a little bit more into it, considering the fact that it's no longer, playable and everything like that, was something I wanted to get into. And as far as the individual for Marvel stating why they believed it failed, I pretty much agree with everything that they say. There's a lot of things that, Concord could have done better, a lot of things they could have improved on instead of going the route and the directions that they did. But overall, there are like one or two things that I don't think they really mentioned that I think was also a factor as to why Concord failed while Marvel Rivals is able to be a success. So we'll go ahead and get into it. So per usual, I'm gonna go ahead and go over this article here, and then as I go along, I'll go ahead and get my thoughts. So Thaddeus Sasser, the game's director of Marvel Rivals, believes that Concord failed to reach its audience because it didn't add any unique value to the market. Both Marvel Rivals and Concord entered the competitive hero shooter market in 2024. While Marvel's newest title has seen a lot of success, Concord was shut down by Sony shortly after its debut. And I think it was like 11 days after. I've mentioned it a few times, but I always forget. I'm pretty sure it was 11 days after its initial release. They ended up shutting Concord down, and yeah, just the player base wasn't really there, so they just decided to scrap it. So, Sony's hero shooter Concord featured a full cast of original characters, much like Blizzard's Overwatch. While Sony tried to introduce its audience to the new heroes and compelling gameplay, it failed to attract a consistent player base, which is putting it lightly. Unfortunately, Sony announced the closure of Firewalk Studios after Concord was shut down. Some fans blame the fact that Concord wasn't free to play, while others believe its failure was due to poor marketing. In contrast, Marvel's Rival was released as a free to play game and almost instantly connected with audiences across multiple platforms. And that's one of the things I definitely agree with. Concord technically, did try to do their thing from scratch and everything like that. But one of the reasons that I believe that they don't really mention was the fact that Concord's characters and everything like that, they just came across as really weird. Like when I think of Concord, I think of the big character. There was one of them that was like kind of a fat character. And when you have a first person shooter where you're running around and everything like that, having a character be overweight is just it's kind of weird because when you think about it realistically, and yes, I know it's animated and it's a video game world, but if a fat person is running around, they're not going to be able to do much of that without getting out of breath, without having some type of issues. And when you're out of breath and you're running around and you're trying to shoot people, the likelihood that you'll be able to actually be accurate and everything like that, even though it's a video game, is very unlikely. The fact that it is a video game, you can try to brush it off like that. But realistically, I feel like there's some people out there that would just take them out of it. And then one of the other characters I think of was a character that looked like it was a woman. I think it was like the black character. When you see it and you're like, oh, who's this chick? And then you find out it's a dude. So just weird things with the direction that they decided to go in this game as far as the characters go. When it comes down to it, one of the reasons that Marvel Rivals is able to be such a success is because of the female characters that they have on it are attractive. They have hips, they have curves. They're they're hot characters. Whether you like it or not, at the end of the day, the saying goes sex sells, and that's true. Whether you want to believe it or not, it does. Sex does sell. So the fact that they have attractive female characters is one gonna be something that works for the male characters because it'll be something nice to look at. And I think they've done studies as well on this where if you have a female character that's attractive, women will want to play as that character. They're not going to want to play as some ugly, weird looking character or a character that you think is a woman but ends up being a man. That's just not how that works. And then on top of that, when it comes down to the female player base, a lot of the male characters in Marvel Rivals, they're like these big, muscular dudes. They look really, really fit and in shape. And that's something that's going to attract the females. So the fact that they're trying to go their direction where they make these characters look just really weird was a very stupid decision on their part. Let's be honest. And then as far as the marketing that they had mentioned, one of the things I remember hearing someone state was that whenever you make a new video game or some type of franchise, more than likely it's going to have the rule 34. or I'm sorry, yeah, Rule 34. Yeah. So Rule 34, for anyone that doesn't know, it's pretty much the rule that if anything is created online, more than likely someone's gonna sexualize it in some type of way. And the thing with the Rule 34 in Concord was that there was no artwork, no things that were done that kind of show these characters in that kind of way. And I know it may sound weird, but at the end of the day, if you're not able to like look at these characters in a way that shows that they are attractive in that regard, it's just gonna like have people be like, well, I don't want these characters just look weird. Especially because a lot of them did look like aliens. I think there was like one character out of the whole game that was like at least somewhat attractive. And the fact that they had it so that you can't, have that marketing for them, because I think the developers themselves try their best to make sure that there wasn't any Rule 34s on their characters. It was another thing that just kind of had people like, well, then screw it. I'm not gonna, pay attention to this type of stuff. Not to say that they have to be sexualized in order for people to like it, but it is one of those things that it leaves it so that people can start making their own little fan fictions in their heads of like, oh, this character is attractive and this character is someone that looks pretty, kind of a thing. Because at the end of the day, you got to think of games like Tomb Raider, with Lara Croft. You got to think of games of like Final Fantasy with like Tifa, what a Street Fighter with Chun-Li. You know what I mean? When you have these pretty characters, it's gonna sell whether you like it or not. Let's just face it. And then as well as the fact that a lot of these characters were new, unless you have some like really good story, which you're more than likely not going to really have with the first person shooter, people aren't going to really care about these characters. So if your only introduction to them is just them playing them in this multiplayer, it's just not going to work. Like, let's face it. And then let's continue on. So, in an interview with the video game podcast, Marvel Rivals game director Thaddeus Sasser stated that he didn't believe Concord brought unique value to the hero shooter market. He also referred to a switching cost associated with launching a new hero shooter. I've always invested in Overwatch. I've got 15 skins of Pharah. I'm not going anywhere, Sasser said. The director believes that his game stands apart because its characters are a known quantity. Marvel has a massive built in audience thanks to the comics and the MCU, in contrast to Concord. Sasser's hero shooter has already fostered an audience as Marvel Rivals reached a milestone of 10 million downloads shortly after launch. And that's another thing, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, yes, Marvel does have a whole cast of characters. Like they stated, they got the comics and the MCU that they're able to go off of. And, all these, different like medium forms like video games, movies, TV shows, that people are gonna know these characters. But it goes back to the fact that like they made these characters. They look the dudes look badass and the women look hot. When you think of Concord, this is the type of stuff you'll see. So you see like this robot character, it looks just very bland. You see this male character right here, I'm guessing it's a male. He looks kind of buff, but at the same time, it's just kind of a weird design. And then you got this like brooding character back here who just doesn't really have anything that stands out. Like, it's a big dude, yeah. But other than like the red head and the blue body, there's not much that you're like, dude, this guy looks badass. Contrast that with this, where you see Venom. He's got the muscles, he looks crazy, he's got the big old mouth. And then, of course, on top of that, you know who the character is. So you're going to have that factor of people just liking the design that you were able to do. This character right here, I don't know. It just comes across as a little bit weird. And then we got this character here. I'm not too sure who this is off the top of my head, but even him with like the design of his armor and everything, it looks badass. He looks really cool. And then I'm not sure if that's Moon Knight actually. Might be Moon Knight, but yeah. And then yeah, so we got this character looks weird. This character, I don't know, looks like he's got a man bun almost. And then this was the one that I was stating that actually looks like at least somewhat attractive. And if they had more character designs kind of like this, and it doesn't even have to be like a human, but like alien creatures that have more of a design with like a nice face to look at, a good body, yeah, more than likely a lot of characters would be like, dude, I want to play as her. Like, she seems cool. Like, it's just one of those things subconsciously you're just like, oh, I want to be that character right there. So again, just a weird direction that they decided to go in. So when Sasser was pitched the idea of Marvel Rivals, he was immediately excited. I don't know about you, but when I heard the concept of the game, I was like, oh my god, I want to be Storm in a game, which, is very true. I want to go be Doctor Strange in a game. Now, as far as Storm goes, that reminds me of like Marvel Legends, because I used to play that back in the day, or like even like the X-Men games on the Sega Genesis that I used to play when I was really little. Being able to play as these different characters and have these different powers was so badass. And for me, my favorite characters were always Cyclops, Nightcrawler, and Gambit. I thought those three characters were so badass. But the fact that you'd be able to play as like Storm as well, being able to control the weather was so cool, or be able to do like telekinetic powers with like Jean Grey. Yeah, like you're gonna like these characters because of the stories behind them and what they're able to do. Like it's really cool. And then when you can contrast that again with Concord, it's like you don't really know much about these characters. So if you're gonna make these characters in the game like that, you really have to make sure you focus heavily on making a really good design that people are gonna like. So the director said Marvel Rivals gives players the opportunity to embody many of their favorite heroes and villains. With 33 characters to choose from and a free to play model, it's easy for players to jump into the game. NetEase Games has even tried to entice players with the crossover between Marvel Rivals and Fortnite, along with free cosmetics. And that's one of the things as well that they mentioned, with Concord having to pay for the game up front. Now, one of the things that was, kind of a somewhat good idea with Concord was the fact that they were going to have it so that you had to pay for the game up front, but a lot of the DLC and the season passes and all that type of stuff was going to be free. Like they were going to give that to you guys regardless. So that I feel like is something that could have worked for them if they had the hype for it, if they had players really wanting to play this game. But no one really knew anything about this game. And then when they see characters that just look weird, it's going to turn them off. So they're not even going to be giving the opportunity to have it so that they can purchase the game themselves and then find out like, yeah, we're going to get all this stuff, this extra content for free, even though we had to pay for the game. All this other stuff is going to come through later on, so it's going to be worth it in the end. If Marvel Rivals decided to go that route, have it so that you had to play for the game, pay for the game itself, and then you got all this stuff free later on, yeah, their player base probably wouldn't start off as well. But once players actually got to see how fun the game is and how much they enjoy it, then yeah, it would be something that they can go ahead and go on from that point on and still be able, in my opinion, be able to be a success. So Sasser also acknowledged that the gaming market is incredibly difficult to predict. He noted that some games seem like they will be successful and flop, while others seem like they will fail and attract huge audiences. Fortunately for Sasser and NetEase Games, Marvel Rivals seems to have been the instant success. While some fans feel that certain heroes are overpowered and require rebalancing, many are happy with their overall experience. With so much success in such a short amount of time, the future looks bright for Marvel Rivals and its fan base. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty disappointing with the direction that Sony decided to take with Concord, especially because it was so weird that they had this mindset of like, oh, this is going to be the future of gaming. Because they had made a statement in that regard that Concord was going to be what gaming was going to turn into. And as you can see, they were completely wrong. You're not going to be the ones that really decide that. That's going to be the players. If you can come out with a good game and have these amazing characters, these people that, these characters that people actually want to see, then yeah, it'll be successful. But you can't just go off of that off the top of your head just because you feel like you guys are doing a great job. Like the individual Sasser said, the video game market can be strange. A lot of the times it shouldn't be because you should be able to be getting feedback from gamers and see what their mindset is on a lot of this type of stuff. But when it comes down to it, it really depends on how good you make the game and how fun it is for players. So that's going to be the factor that you always want to keep into consideration when you're doing this type of stuff. And with Concord, they didn't even get that opportunity. So those are my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Do you guys think that Concord deserved the love or hate, I should say, probably that it got, or do you think it was well deserved? Personally, I think it was well deserved. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you guys could like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you guys have been watching this long, I really appreciate it. It means a lot. And yeah, until next time, Harmonic out. Peace.